Have you ever watched a movie in English, listened to a podcast, or spoken to a native speaker and suddenly felt like they were speaking at lightning speed?
Oh, absolutely. You start with confidence because you understand the first sentence, and then 2 seconds later, it feels like they switched to another language.
Exactly. And the strange thing is, sometimes you know every single word individually. You studied them, you memorized them. But when native speakers put those words together in real life, your brain freezes.
That is so true. You hear something like, "What you gonna do?" And you think, wait, I learned "what are you going to do" in school. Why does this sound completely different?
And that is the big problem. Most English learners study textbook English, but native speakers do not speak like textbooks. They shorten words, connect sounds, speak emotionally, change their tone, and use expressions you may never see in a classroom.
Which is why so many people feel confident reading English, but panic when they have to listen to real conversations.
Exactly. And if that has happened to you, I want you to know something important right now. You are not bad at English.
That is such an important thing to hear.
You are simply training with the wrong type of English. Imagine learning to swim by only reading books about swimming. Then one day someone throws you into the ocean. Of course it feels overwhelming.
That is honestly the perfect example. Real English feels like the ocean. Fast, messy, unpredictable.
But here's the good news. Once you understand how native speakers actually communicate, everything starts changing. You begin hearing the patterns. You stop translating every word in your head. You start understanding emotions, tone, slang, connected speech, and hidden meanings.
And suddenly, English feels less like a school subject and more like a real conversation.
Exactly. In this episode from Talk Easy Daily, we are going to explore why real English feels so difficult, why native speakers sound completely different from textbook English, and most importantly, how you can train your ears to finally understand English naturally.
And make sure you stay until the end, because some of the biggest mistakes English learners make are probably things you do every single day without realizing it.
We are also going to share simple tricks that can completely change the way you listen.
And I think a lot of viewers are going to have one big aha moment where they suddenly realize, oh, that is why I cannot understand native speakers.
Exactly. Because once you see the hidden reasons, you can finally fix the problem.
So before we start, comment below and tell us honestly, what is the hardest thing for you in listening to English? Is it fast speaking, slang, accents, pronunciation, or maybe movies and TV shows?
And if you want to improve your English naturally every day, make sure you subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, because we make lessons that help you understand real English in real life.
All right, let's get into it. Why does native English sound so different from the English you learned in school?
Native speakers do something that most English textbooks never prepare you for. They connect words together.
Yes, they do not speak one word at a time like robots.
Exactly. In textbooks, you might see a sentence like, "What are you doing?" But in real life, native speakers often say, "What are you doing?"
And if you're not ready for that, it sounds like one giant mystery word.
Let's take another example. Imagine someone says, "Did you eat yet?"
A lot of native speakers do not actually pronounce every word clearly. They say something more like, "G yet?" And if you hear that for the first time, you might think, what does "G" mean?
Exactly. But once you know the hidden form, suddenly it becomes clear. Native speakers are constantly reducing sounds. They're not trying to confuse you. They're just speaking naturally and quickly.
This is one of the biggest reasons learners feel lost. They're waiting to hear perfect pronunciation, but native speakers rarely speak that way in everyday life.
And there's another hidden reason too. Native speakers often drop sounds completely.
Oh yes, like when people say, "I don't know," instead of "I do not know."
Exactly. Or gonna instead of going to. Or wanna instead of want to.
Or gotta instead of got to.
Right. These small changes happen everywhere in spoken English. You hear them in movies, podcasts, songs, interviews, and daily conversations.
And the funny thing is, many learners know these expressions when they see them written down, but when they hear them spoken fast, they miss them completely.
Because listening is not just about vocabulary, it's about sound patterns.
That is such an important point.
Let me give you an example. If someone says, "I am going to go to the store," they may actually pronounce it like, "I'm gonna go to the store."
And that sounds very different from what you learned in school.
Exactly. Now imagine a native speaker says it quickly, "I'm gonna go to the store."
Suddenly, all the words blend together.
And this is where learners panic. They think, "I know these words, why can I not hear them?"
But the problem is not your vocabulary. The problem is that your ears are trained for written English, not spoken English.
That is a huge difference. And if you want to understand native speakers, you need to train your ears differently.
So let's talk about the biggest mistake people make when they practice listening.
Most learners only listen to English they already understand.
That sounds safe, but it can become a trap.
Exactly. They listen to slow English listens forever. They listen to teachers who speak very clearly. They stay inside their comfort zone.
Which feels good in the moment because you understand everything. But then one day you watch a real interview, or listen to a real podcast, or talk to a native speaker, and suddenly you understand almost nothing. That can be so frustrating because you think, I have studied English for years. Why is this still so hard? The answer is simple. You haven't spent enough time listening to real English. That is uncomfortable at first, though. It is. But growth is always uncomfortable in the beginning. Think about going to the gym. If you only lift very light weights forever, your muscles never grow. So with listening, you need to challenge your ears. Exactly. You need to listen to English that is slightly difficult. Not impossible, not so hard that you understand nothing, but difficult enough that your brain starts adapting. That reminds me of something that happened to me when I first started watching English YouTube videos without subtitles.
What happened?
At first, I understood maybe 20%. It felt terrible. I wanted to quit after 5 minutes.
That is a very normal experience.
But after a few weeks, something strange happened. I started recognizing repeated phrases. I began understanding jokes. I could hear where one word ended and the next word began.
Because your brain was learning the rhythm of English.
Exactly. And after a few months, I realized I was understanding far more than before, without even translating in my head.
That is the key. Real listening improvement happens slowly and invisibly.
Which means you cannot quit too early.
Exactly. A lot of people stop listening practice because they think they're not improving, but often you are improving in small ways that you don't notice immediately.
Like understanding one extra sentence in a movie.
Or recognizing one new expression in a podcast.
Or finally understanding a joke that used to confuse you.
Those small wins matter because they build confidence.
And confidence changes everything when learning English.
Let's do a quick myth versus reality moment.
I love these.
Myth. If you do not understand every word, you are failing.
Reality, native speakers do not understand every single word either.
Exactly. Even native speakers miss words in songs, movies, crowded places, or fast conversations.
That is so true. Sometimes even native speakers say, "Sorry, what did you say?"
All the time. Real communication is not about understanding every single word. It's about understanding enough to follow the meaning.
That should make a lot of viewers feel better.
I hope so, because perfection is not the goal. Progress is the goal.
And if you are enjoying this conversation so far, pause for 1 second and hit the like button, because it really helps Talk Easy Daily reach more English learners around the world.
And comment below with one English phrase that confused you the first time you heard it.
I think everyone has one.
Absolutely. And in the next part, we are going to talk about something that makes listening even harder: accents.
Because even if you understand one native speaker, another native speaker can sound completely different.
And once you understand why that happens, English becomes much less scary. One of the biggest surprises for English learners is realizing that there is not just one type of English accent.
Yes, a lot of people think if I learn American English, I will understand all English.
But then they hear someone from Australia, Scotland, Ireland, Texas, London, or South Africa, and suddenly it feels like they're listening to a completely different language.
I remember the first time I heard a strong British accent in a TV show. I was shocked because I thought, wait, this is English?
That reaction is very common, and the reason is simple. Different accents change pronunciation, rhythm, vocabulary, and even intonation.
Intonation is so important because it changes the feeling of a sentence.
Exactly. Two people can say the exact same sentence, but the emotion sounds completely different depending on how they say it.
For example, if someone says, "Really?" that one word can mean surprise, anger, excitement, doubt, or sarcasm.
And that is one of the hardest things for learners. Understanding words is one thing. Understanding tone is another level.
Because native speakers often communicate feelings indirectly.
Exactly. Let's imagine someone says, "Oh, great,"
That could sound positive.
or sarcastic.
Right. If your friend says, "Oh, great," after spilling coffee on their laptop, they do not actually mean great.
They mean the opposite. And if you only focus on the dictionary meaning of words, you can completely misunderstand the situation.
That is why listening is not just about language, it is also about emotion.
Very true. Native speakers use stress and tone to show what they really mean. Sometimes the real meaning is hidden inside the voice, not the words.
That sounds difficult.
It is difficult at first, but once you become aware of it, you start noticing patterns.
So how can viewers train themselves to understand different accents better?
The first step is simple.
Stop listening to only one type of English.
That is such good advice.
If you only listen to one teacher with one accent, your ears become too comfortable. Then when you hear someone different, you panic.
So you need variety.
Exactly. Listen to American YouTubers, British podcasts, Australian interviews, Canadian TV shows, and even different age groups.
Different age groups?
Yes, younger people often use newer slang and speak faster. Older people may speak more slowly or use different expressions.
That is interesting because even inside one country, English changes so much.
Absolutely. Someone from New York sounds different from someone in California. Someone from London sounds different from someone in Manchester.
And that can feel overwhelming.
It can, but here is the important thing. You do not need to understand every accent perfectly.
That is good news.
You just need enough exposure so your brain stops feeling shocked when it hears something unfamiliar.
So it's really about reducing surprise.
Exactly. When your brain hears a new accent for the first time, it struggles because everything feels unexpected. But after enough exposure, that accent starts feeling more normal.
Like hearing a song many times. At first it sounds strange, but after a while it becomes familiar.
That is a perfect comparison. And here's a quick tip for everyone watching. When you find an accent difficult, do not avoid it.
That is what most people do.
Exactly. Most learners run away from difficult accents because they feel uncomfortable. But if you avoid them, they will always feel difficult.
So instead, spend a little time with them every day.
Right. Even 10 minutes a day listening to a difficult accent can make a huge difference over time.
Let's talk about another big problem, slang.
Ah, yes. Slang is where many learners suddenly feel lost.
Because slang is not usually taught in school.
Exactly. You may spend years learning grammar and vocabulary, but then someone says, that movie was sick, and you think, wait, sick means ill. Why is that positive?
Or someone says, I'm broke, and you imagine something physically broken.
Right, but I'm broke means I have no money.
Slang changes constantly too.
It does, and native speakers use slang because it feels more natural, emotional, and casual.
Which means if you want to understand real English, you cannot ignore slang forever.
Exactly. But here's the mistake many learners make. They try to memorize huge lists of slang words all at once.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And most of those words disappear from your memory because you never hear them in real life.
So what is the better way?
Learn slang naturally through context. When you hear a slang word many times in movies, podcasts, social media, or conversations, it becomes easier to remember.
Because now the word has a real situation connected to it.
Exactly. For example, imagine you hear someone say, I am so tired, I'm gonna crash.
At first that sounds scary.
Yes, you may think they're talking about a car accident, but in casual English, I'm gonna crash often means I am going to sleep.
That is such a good example because context changes everything.
Exactly. Context is your best friend when listening.
That is a really important point for viewers. Stop trying to understand every word alone. Look at the whole situation.
Yes, ask yourself, what is happening? Who is speaking? What emotion are they showing? What topic are they discussing?
Because sometimes you can understand the meaning even if you miss a few words.
And that is exactly how native speakers listen too.
Really?
Absolutely. Native speakers are constantly using context to understand conversations. They do not analyze every word one by one.
That is so interesting because many learners think native speakers understand everything perfectly.
But they do not. They simply use clues faster.
Which means viewers can learn to do the same thing.
Exactly. And here's a surprising fact. Sometimes listening too hard can actually make things worse.
Wait, really?
Yes. When learners panic, they often focus too much on one word they missed.
Oh wow, I have definitely done that.
You hear one unknown word and suddenly your brain gets stuck. While you were thinking about that one word, the conversation continues and you miss the next sentence too.
It becomes a chain reaction.
Exactly. That is why sometimes the best thing you can do is let the unknown word go and keep listening.
That is difficult though.
It is, but it is a powerful habit. Because in real conversations, you don't have time to stop and think about every word.
You have to keep moving forward.
Right. Think of listening like driving a car. If you keep staring at one small thing on the road, you lose awareness of everything else.
That is such a good example.
And in the next part, we are going to talk about one of the biggest secrets to understanding native English faster.
And honestly, this secret is something most people completely ignore.
Because the best way to improve listening is not what most learners expect. The biggest secret to understanding native English is this. You need to stop only listening and start copying.
That sounds simple, but I think most people don't do it.
Exactly. Most learners treat listening like entertainment. They watch videos, listen to podcasts, hear songs, and hope their English improves automatically.
But passive listening is not enough.
Right. Passive listening can help a little, but if you really want to understand native English, you need active listening.
So what is the difference?
Passive listening is when English is just playing in the background. Maybe you're cooking, cleaning, driving, or scrolling on your phone.
Which is still useful sometimes.
Yes, it is useful for exposure, but active listening is much more powerful. Active listening means you stop, replay, notice pronunciation, repeat phrases, copy intonation, and train your ears to hear the details.
So instead of just hearing English, you study how it sounds.
Exactly. Let me give you an example. Imagine a native speaker says, "I should have told you earlier."
That sounds pretty normal.
But when native speakers say it quickly, it may sound more like, "I should have told you earlier."
And if you only hear it once, it's easy to miss.
Right. But if you pause, replay it, and repeat it out loud, you start noticing the hidden sounds.
And once you can say it, you can hear it better too.
That is one of the biggest secrets in language learning. Your speaking and listening are connected.
That is so true. Sometimes I could not understand a phrase until I tried saying it myself.
Exactly. When you train your mouth, you train your ears.
That reminds me of shadowing.
Yes, shadowing is one of the most powerful techniques for improving listening.
For anyone who doesn't know, shadowing means listening to a native speaker and immediately repeating what they say.
Exactly. You copy their speed, rhythm, pronunciation, stress, emotion, and pauses.
At first it feels really awkward.
It does. You may feel silly. You may feel slow. You may feel like you can't keep up.
But after a while, your brain starts adapting.
Exactly. And something amazing happens. You begin understanding English not as separate words, but as natural sound groups.
That is such an important shift.
Because native speakers don't speak one word at a time, they speak in chunks.
Like, how's it going? Or what do you mean? Or I don't know.
Exactly. These are chunks of English. And if you train yourself to hear chunks instead of individual words, listening becomes much easier.
That makes so much sense, because real English moves too fast to translate word by word.
Exactly. If you try translating every word in your head, you will always feel behind.
That is one of the biggest problems for many learners.
Yes. They hear an English sentence, translate it into their native language, think about the meaning, and then try to continue listening.
But by then, the conversation has already moved on.
Exactly. It is like trying to watch a football game while reading yesterday's newspaper.
That is such a funny image, but it is true.
If you want to understand native English faster, you need to train yourself to connect directly with the meaning instead of translating everything.
How can people start doing that?
One simple way is by using pictures, situations, and emotions instead of translation.
What do you mean?
Let's say you hear the phrase, "I am starving."
Many learners translate it directly into their own language.
But a better method is to connect the phrase to a mental image. Imagine someone who is extremely hungry, opening the fridge, looking desperate for food.
So now the phrase becomes an emotion and a picture, not just a translation.
Exactly. This helps English feel more natural in your mind.
That is really powerful.
Another great trick is to focus on common phrases instead of rare vocabulary.
That is such a good point, because many learners spend hours memorizing difficult words they never use.
Exactly. They know advanced words like extraordinary or magnificent, but they struggle with basic spoken phrases like "no worries," "sounds good," or "I'll let you know."
And those everyday phrases are what native speakers use all the time.
Exactly. If your goal is real listening improvement, common phrases matter more than complicated vocabulary.
Let's do another myth versus reality moment.
Good idea.
Myth. To understand native speakers, you need a huge vocabulary.
Reality, you need strong listening habits and common phrases more than rare words.
That is such an important difference.
Because most daily conversations use the same small group of words again and again.
Really?
Yes. In everyday English, people repeat common verbs like get, go, do, make, take, want, know, think, and need.
That is interesting, because those are very simple words.
Exactly. But native speakers use them in many different ways. For example, get can mean receive, become, arrive, understand, buy, catch, or fetch.
Wow, one small word can have so many meanings.
And that is why context is so important.
I think this is one of the biggest mindset shifts for viewers. You do not need to know every fancy word. You need to know how common words are really used.
Exactly. And if you're finding this helpful, subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, because we make content that helps you understand English the way people actually speak in real life.
And comment below with one phrase that native speakers use all the time but confused you at first.
Because sometimes the most common phrases are the most surprising.
And in the next part, we are going to talk about real-life situations where listening becomes especially difficult.
Like phone calls, group conversations, noisy places, and movies.
Because understanding English in those situations is a completely different challenge.
There is a huge difference between understanding English in a classroom and understanding English in real life.
Oh yes, in a classroom, everything is slow, clear, and organized.
Exactly. But in real life, people interrupt each other, speak quickly, laugh, change topics suddenly, and sometimes don't even finish their sentences.
That is why so many learners say, I can understand my teacher, but I cannot understand real people.
And honestly, that's completely normal.
Let's start with phone calls, because phone calls can feel terrifying.
Absolutely. Phone calls remove something very important, visual clues.
Right, you cannot see the other person's face, body language, or mouth movements.
And those visual clues help a lot when you are listening.
Because sometimes you can guess the meaning from someone's expression.
Exactly. But on the phone, all you have is sound.
Which means if the connection is bad, the person speaks quickly, or there's background noise, it becomes even harder.
That is why many English learners feel nervous before making phone calls.
I think one of the scariest things is when someone answers the phone very quickly.
Yes, sometimes native speakers answer with something like, "Hey, what's up?"
And if you expected, "Hello, how are you?" you suddenly freeze.
Exactly. That is why it's useful to prepare for common phone expressions.
Like, "Can I call you back?"
Or, "The line is breaking up."
Or, "Sorry, I didn't catch that."
Or, "Could you repeat that?"
That last one is really important because many learners are afraid to ask people to repeat themselves.
Yes, they think asking someone to repeat is embarrassing.
But native speakers do it all the time.
Exactly. If someone speaks too quickly, too quietly, or unclearly, even native speakers say, "Sorry," or "Can you say that again?"
That should make viewers feel much better.
I hope so, because asking for repetition is not weakness, it's smart communication.
And honestly, most people are happy to repeat themselves if you ask politely.
Very true. Now let's talk about group conversations.
Oh no, group conversations are chaos.
They can be, because in group conversations, people often speak over each other.
Someone starts a story, another person interrupts, someone laughs, another person changes the topic.
Exactly. And because multiple voices are involved, your brain has to work much harder.
I remember being in a group conversation in English and feeling okay when one person spoke to me directly.
But then everyone started talking together.
Exactly, and suddenly I had no idea what was happening.
That happens to many learners. And here's the important thing to remember. Group conversations are difficult for everyone, not just language learners.
Really?
Absolutely. Even native speakers sometimes struggle in loud restaurants, busy parties, or crowded rooms.
That is actually comforting.
Because it means the problem is not always your English. Sometimes the situation itself is just difficult.
So what can viewers do in group situations?
One useful trick is to focus on understanding the main topic instead of every detail.
That is smart.
For example, if everyone is talking about travel, food, work, or movies, try to stay connected to the general subject.
Because even if you miss a few sentences, you can still follow the conversation.
Exactly. Another helpful trick is to watch the reactions of other people.
That is so true. If everyone laughs, smiles, looks surprised, or becomes serious, you can use those reactions as clues.
And this is why face-to-face conversations are often easier than phone calls.
Because you can see people's emotions.
Right. You can use body language, eye contact, and gestures to help you understand.
Let's talk about movies, because movies can be frustrating too.
Absolutely. Many learners think, I understand English lessons, so now I should understand movies.
And then they watch a movie and understand almost nothing.
Exactly. Movies are difficult because actors speak naturally, use slang, whisper, shout, mumble, and sometimes talk over background music.
Plus, every movie has different accents and different situations.
Right. An action movie sounds different from a romantic comedy. A historical drama sounds different from a modern TV show.
And sometimes one actor speaks clearly while another actor is impossible to understand.
Exactly. So here's an important tip. Do not start with the hardest content.
That is such good advice.
A lot of learners choose very difficult movies because they want to challenge themselves.
Like crime dramas or fast action movies.
Exactly. But if you understand almost nothing, you will just feel frustrated.
So where should people start?
Start with content that matches your current level. Simple YouTube videos, slower podcasts, sitcoms, family movies, or shows with everyday conversations.
Because everyday conversations are easier to follow than complicated stories.
Exactly. Sitcoms are often very useful because the situations are familiar. Friends are talking, people are eating, someone is late, someone is dating, someone is arguing.
Those are situations viewers already understand.
Right. And when you already know the situation, listening becomes easier.
What about subtitles?
That's a great question. Subtitles can help, but many learners use them the wrong way.
How so?
If you always watch with subtitles in your own language, your eyes become stronger than your ears.
That is so true, because you end up reading instead of listening.
Exactly. A better method is to use English subtitles first.
Because then you can connect the sounds to the words.
Right. Then later, try watching without subtitles for short sections.
Even if it is only 1 or 2 minutes at first.
Exactly. Build your listening strength slowly.
This reminds me of something important. A lot of learners expect instant results.
Yes. They think, I listened to English for 1 week. Why am I not fluent yet?
But listening is a long process.
Exactly. It is like learning to play an instrument. You cannot become amazing after a few days.
You need repetition.
You need consistency. Listening to English for 20 minutes every day is much more powerful than listening for 5 hours once a month.
That is such a good reminder.
Because small daily habits create huge long-term results.
Let's do one more quick pattern interrupt.
All right?
Imagine two learners.
Okay.
The first learner studies English 1 day a week for 4 hours.
All right.
The second learner studies 20 minutes every day.
The second learner will usually improve faster.
Exactly, because daily contact with English keeps your brain connected to the language.
That is such an important lesson for viewers. Consistency beats intensity.
And in the next part, we are going to talk about real stories and examples of people who finally learned to understand native English.
Because sometimes hearing other people's struggles can help you realize that you are not alone.
And you may even recognize yourself in their story.
There is something very comforting about hearing that other people struggled with the exact same problem you have right now.
Because when you cannot understand native English, it can feel very personal.
Exactly. You start thinking, maybe I am not smart enough, or maybe I will never be fluent.
And that mindset can be really dangerous because it makes people want to give up.
But the truth is, almost every English learner goes through this stage.
Even very advanced learners.
Absolutely. Let me tell you about someone I once knew named Daniel.
What happened with Daniel?
Daniel had studied English for almost 10 years in school. His grammar was excellent. He knew thousands of vocabulary words. He could read books and write emails very well.
So on paper, his English looked really strong.
Exactly. But then he traveled to another country and tried to speak with native speakers.
And everything changed.
Completely. People spoke too fast. They used slang. They interrupted each other. They laughed before he even understood the joke.
That must have felt terrible.
It did. Daniel told me that during his first week, he smiled and nodded most of the time because he had no idea what people were saying.
I think so many viewers can relate to that.
Absolutely. Maybe you have done that too. Someone says something in English, and even though you don't fully understand, you smile, nod, and hope the conversation keeps moving.
I have definitely done that.
Daniel felt embarrassed. He thought all those years of study had failed him.
But I'm guessing that's not the end of the story.
Not at all. Instead of giving up, Daniel changed the way he practiced English.
What did he do?
He stopped focusing only on grammar books and vocabulary lists. He started listening to real English every day.
Like podcasts and movies?
Exactly. He listened to interviews, YouTube videos, TV shows, and casual conversations. At first, he understood very little.
That is the hard part.
It is. But he kept going. He replayed short clips. He repeated phrases out loud. He copied pronunciation. He learned common expressions.
So instead of just studying English, he started living inside English.
Exactly. And after a few months, he noticed something amazing.
What happened?
He was no longer translating every sentence in his head. He started understanding phrases automatically.
That must have felt incredible.
It did. And the best part is that his confidence grew too.
Because once you understand more, you stop feeling afraid.
Exactly. Confidence is one of the biggest hidden parts of listening.
That is such an important point, because fear can block understanding.
Very true. When you are nervous, your brain becomes tense. You focus too hard. You panic when you miss one word.
And then you miss the next 5 words too.
Exactly. But when you are relaxed, your listening improves.
That reminds me of another story.
Go ahead.
I knew someone named Sarah who loved English movies, but she always watched them with subtitles in her own language.
That's very common.
She thought she was improving because she watched English every day.
But really, she was reading in her own language.
Exactly. One day she decided to switch to English subtitles instead.
That can feel difficult at first.
It did. But after a few weeks, she noticed she was hearing words more clearly.
Because she was connecting the sounds directly to the English words.
Right. Then later, she started watching short scenes without subtitles.
That's a really smart method.
And at first, she could only understand a little. But after months of practice, she realized something surprising.
What was it?
She could suddenly watch entire scenes without subtitles and still understand the main idea.
That is such a powerful moment.
Because it feels like proof that you are improving.
Exactly. Listening improvement often feels invisible until suddenly one day you realize, wait, I understood that.
And those moments are so exciting.
They are. Maybe you understand your first joke in English. Maybe you understand a song lyric without reading it. Maybe you watch a scene in a movie and realize you didn't need subtitles.
Those small moments feel huge.
Because they show you that your brain is adapting.
I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is expecting listening to become easy overnight.
Yes, they want instant success.
But real improvement comes from hundreds of small moments.
Exactly. One podcast episode, one movie scene, one phrase, one new accent, one difficult conversation.
And all of those small moments build on each other.
Let's imagine 2 different people.
All right.
The first person says, native English is too hard. I will never understand it.
And because they believe that, they avoid listening practice.
Exactly. They stay comfortable, but they never improve.
What about the second person?
The second person says, this is difficult right now, but my ears can improve.
That is a completely different mindset.
Exactly. That person keeps practicing, even when it feels uncomfortable.
And over time, that person becomes stronger.
Yes, because listening is not a talent, it is a skill.
That is such an important sentence.
Listening is not something you are born with, it is something you train.
Which means if you are struggling right now, that does not mean you are bad at English.
Exactly. It just means you are still learning.
And honestly, that's where all growth begins.
So if you are watching this right now and you feel frustrated because native speakers sound too fast, too unclear, or too confusing, remember this: you are not alone.
Every fluent English speaker was once confused too.
Every advanced learner once felt lost in conversations.
Every confident English speaker once struggled to understand simple phrases.
But the people who improve are not the people who never struggle.
They are the people who keep going.
Exactly. And in the next part, we are going to go deeper.
We are going to talk about the hidden psychology behind listening.
Because sometimes the real thing stopping you is not your English level.
It's your fear, your habits, and the way you think about listening.
And once you change that mindset, everything else becomes easier. A lot of people think listening is only about vocabulary and grammar.
But it's much deeper than that.
Exactly.
Sometimes two people with the same English level can have completely different listening abilities. That is so true. One person stays calm and keeps following the conversation, while the other person panics after missing one word.
And that difference is often psychological.
Which means your mindset affects your listening.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example.
Imagine someone says a sentence in English and you don't understand one word. Many learners immediately think, oh no, I do not understand anything.
Exactly. And the moment that thought appears, their confidence drops.
Then they start worrying.
And when you worry, your brain stops listening properly.
That is so true, because fear creates pressure.
Exactly. And pressure makes listening harder.
So sometimes the real problem is not the English itself, it's the panic.
Right. Imagine you are in a conversation with a native speaker. They say something quickly, and you miss one phrase.
At that moment, you have two choices.
Choice 1, you panic, stop listening, and think, I am terrible at English.
Which means you will probably miss the rest of the conversation too.
Exactly. Choice 2, you stay calm and think, that's okay. I missed one phrase, but I can still understand the main idea.
That mindset is so much healthier.
And it leads to better listening, because when you stay relaxed, your brain can keep processing information.
That reminds me of sports.
How so?
Imagine a football player misses one shot.
Okay.
If they keep thinking about that mistake, they play worse for the rest of the game.
That is a perfect example.
But if they quickly move on, they can stay focused.
Exactly. Listening works the same way. You can't let one missed word destroy your confidence.
Because missing words is normal.
Very normal. Even advanced learners miss words sometimes.
Even native speakers miss words.
Exactly. And here is something important for viewers to remember. Your brain needs time to adjust to English.
That is such a powerful reminder,
Many learners expect themselves to understand English immediately.
especially if they have studied for a long time.
Right. They think, I know the grammar, I know the vocabulary, why is listening still hard?
But listening is a separate skill.
Exactly. Reading, writing, speaking, and listening are connected, but they are not the same.
Someone can be great at reading and still struggle with listening.
Absolutely, because reading gives you time.
You can stop, look at the words, and think slowly,
But listening happens in real time.
which means your brain has to react much faster.
Exactly. And that is why listening practice is so important. You are training your brain to react more quickly.
I think a lot of viewers are going to realize they haven't actually been training listening enough.
Probably. Many learners spend years reading English, but very little time hearing it.
And then they wonder why real conversations feel impossible.
Exactly. It's like training for a marathon by only reading books about running.
That is such a good image.
You can know everything about running, but if you never actually run, your body is not ready.
And if you never really listen to English, your ears are not ready.
Exactly. That's why daily listening matters so much.
Even short listening sessions can help.
Absolutely. 10 or 15 minutes every day can be powerful if you do it consistently.
Especially if you focus carefully.
Right. And here is another hidden psychological problem. Many learners compare themselves too much.
Oh yes, that is a big one.
They watch someone online speaking perfect English and think, why am I not like that?
And comparison can make you feel terrible.
Exactly. But you never know how long that person practiced, how many mistakes they made, or how many years they struggled before becoming fluent.
That is so important because people usually only show the final result.
Exactly.
They don't show the embarrassing moments, the misunderstandings, the failed conversations, or the years of practice.
Which means you shouldn't judge your beginning against someone else's middle.
That is a very powerful sentence.
Because everyone learns at a different speed.
Absolutely. Some people improve quickly with pronunciation, others improve faster with grammar, others become strong listeners first.
There is no perfect timeline.
Exactly. The important thing is that you keep moving forward.
Even if the progress feels slow.
Especially then, because slow progress is still progress.
I think a lot of viewers need to hear that.
Definitely. If you understood one more sentence this week than last week, that is progress.
If you recognized one new phrase in a movie, that is progress.
If you felt a little less nervous during a conversation, that is progress.
And those tiny wins matter more than people realize.
Because confidence grows from small victories.
Let's do one more myth versus reality moment.
All right.
Myth. If listening still feels difficult, it means you are failing.
Reality. If listening feels difficult, it means you are challenging yourself and growing.
That is such an important mindset shift.
Because if English always feels easy, you're probably staying in your comfort zone.
And growth does not happen inside the comfort zone.
Exactly. The uncomfortable stage is where the real learning happens.
That is such a good reminder for anyone who feels frustrated right now.
And remember, every time you listen to English, even when it feels hard, your brain is adapting.
Even if you can't see it immediately.
Exactly. Your ears are becoming stronger. Your brain is recognizing more patterns. Your confidence is growing little by little.
Which means one day you're going to have a moment where you suddenly realize, wow, I understood that.
And that moment is worth all the effort.
Because it proves that your hard work is paying off.
And in the next part, we are going to bring everything together.
We are going to recap the biggest lessons from today and leave viewers with a final message they will remember.
Because if you truly understand these ideas, native English will stop feeling impossible. Let's bring everything together. Because today we covered something that frustrates almost every English learner at some point.
Understanding real English.
Exactly. Not textbook English, not slow classroom English, real English.
The kind of English people use in movies, podcasts, interviews, phone calls, group conversations, and daily life.
And the first big lesson is this. If native English feels difficult, it doesn't mean you are bad at English.
It usually means you are not used to real spoken English yet.
Exactly. Because native speakers connect words, reduce sounds, use slang, change their tone, and speak much faster than textbooks.
Which is why phrases like, what are you doing, suddenly become, what are you doing?
Or going to becomes gonna.
Or want to becomes wanna.
And once you understand these patterns, English becomes much less confusing.
Another huge lesson is that listening is not only about vocabulary.
Right. It's about rhythm, sound patterns, emotion, context, and confidence.
Because sometimes you know all the words, but you still do not understand the sentence.
Exactly. And that's because real listening is more than just translating words one by one.
You need to understand chunks, situations, tone, and hidden meanings.
Another important lesson is that you don't need to understand every single word.
That is such a big one.
Because so many learners panic when they miss one word.
And then they stop listening completely.
Exactly. But real communication is not about perfect understanding. It's about understanding enough to follow the meaning.
Which is exactly what native speakers do too.
Right. Native speakers miss words sometimes. They ask people to repeat things. They misunderstand jokes. They get confused in noisy places.
That should make viewers feel so much better.
I hope so. Because many learners think they are the only ones struggling.
But they are not alone at all.
Another important lesson is that listening improves through exposure.
Which means you have to spend time with real English.
Exactly. You need podcasts, YouTube videos, movies, interviews, conversations, and different accents.
Even when it feels uncomfortable at first.
Especially then, because that uncomfortable feeling is often a sign that your brain is growing.
And the more you hear real English, the less shocking it becomes.
Exactly. Your ears start recognizing patterns automatically.
Another huge lesson is that active listening is much more powerful than passive listening.
Right. Do not just let English play in the background all day and hope for magic.
Pause, replay, repeat, shadow, and copy native speakers.
Because when you learn to say English naturally, you also learn to hear it naturally.
That connection between speaking and listening is so important.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest mindset changes from today is this. Stop expecting instant results.
Because listening is a long journey.
Exactly. It's built from small, daily improvements.
One new phrase.
One new accent.
One movie scene.
One conversation.
One moment where you suddenly realize, wait, I understood that.
Those moments matter because they prove you are improving.
Even when it feels slow.
Especially when it feels slow.
Because slow progress is still progress.
And if you remember only one thing from this entire episode, let it be this. Understanding native English is not about being perfect.
It is about being patient.
It's about staying curious.
It is about practicing consistently.
And it's about believing that your ears can improve.
Because they can.
Absolutely. If you keep listening, keep practicing, and keep showing up, you will improve.
One day you're going to watch a movie scene, hear a podcast, or have a conversation with a native speaker and suddenly realize that you understood much more than before.
And that moment is going to feel amazing.
Because you will realize that all your effort was worth it.
So if this episode helped you, make sure you subscribe to Talk Easy Daily for more real English conversations that help you improve naturally.
And hit the like button because it really helps the channel grow and reach more English learners around the world. Also comment below and tell us, what is the furthest part of listening to English for you right now? Is it fast speaking?
Slang?
Accents?
Movies?
Phone calls?
We read the comments, and your answer might inspire a future episode here on Talk Easy Daily.
And if you know someone who struggles with understanding native English, share this episode with them.
Because sometimes one helpful conversation can completely change the way someone learns.
Keep practicing.
Keep listening.
Keep believing in yourself.
And we will see you in the next episode of Talk Easy Daily.